All right, Monday night. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mayor, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jesse?
Remember, this is the time of the show where we like to remind everybody to share this message. Just click that share button. Again, every Monday around this time.
Yes.
We try to start at 7.
Yeah.
But regardless, share and, of course, engage. We love to see all of your questions, comments, and concerns throughout the broadcast. What are we talking about tonight?
This is going to be very interesting tonight, and this is actually a very interesting topic, and it's really it's a direction that we're bringing the city of Melbourne into, and it's called low impact development, and it's kind of you hear the name low impact development, but what we did is brought an expert in and who's done work with the Indian River Lagoon Council, the group, and he's done a lot of work. With Canaveral. We saw him up in Cape Canaveral a couple weeks ago when Dr. Soto, who was on here a couple weeks ago, was up there, and she says nothing but amazing things about his work. And he came before our Melbourne City Council, and he kind of started to give that low impact development pitch. And I'm like, whoa, before we need to really go this direction, and that's the way we're going to go. So before I'd like to introduce Chris Bogdan, and he can tell us a little bit about himself. Hey, hello, Chris.
Hi, how are you tonight? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first time doing this, so I feel like cool. And fancy
victim.
Here.
We got a victim. Yes,
we got a victim. I would appreciate it if you didn't call me that, but that's okay. I'll take it. My name's Chris Bogdan. I work with Ferguson Water Works, and so I work with our green infrastructure group or low impact development. Those two words are kind of exchangeable, and essentially it's just a different way to look at stormwater management. So I've been with Ferguson for about a year. Prior to that, I worked with a company called ECS, and we manufactured a Bold and Gold media that was invented at the University of Central Florida. We've actually used it here in the city, and it takes nitrogen and phosphorus out of water. So I've been in this water quality world for a little while, and we've done a lot of work with a bunch of different cities and counties, Melbourne being one of them. And so it's exciting to be here and talk about what green infrastructure can do for the city.
This is, to me, is very important because, being in the mayor position, you have the ability to change the directions of city with the support of council. And I wanted to stay green. I wanted to make sure we kept our trees and kept our, our green spaces. That's very important to me. And then this kind of development also changes the game for the Indian River Lagoon, because the old mentality was to take stormwater and let it all run to the Indian River Lagoon, and then you had all the trash and nitrogen, phosphorus. So of course we've been doing baffle boxes, and that's, you mentioned the Bold and Gold. We see that in all the new baffle box material. But it's kind of, how would you describe it? It would be keeping the water in that area, correct?
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. I mean, essentially the goal of green infrastructure is to capture rainwater where it falls. When rain hits the ground, it runs essentially across surface areas. Could be grass, could be pavements, and it picks up pollutants along the way, and then those pollutants go into a drain, and they go into the lagoon or the river, or maybe a pond or a creek, or something in your yard, or in your area. So basically, green infrastructure says we're going to collect that water and just really try and keep it on site, hang on to it, so that we just don't let it go untreated into the lagoon.
Yeah, interesting. And it's actually much more than that. And if you were to look like some of the projects that we're doing now, if you were to go down Pineapple Avenue, I remember when we fought the initial DOT, they were going to do a half-mile bike path, and they were going to rip out all the old oak trees, and it was just going to pour concrete. And we got that changed, and we kept the oak trees. But if you look at it now and you see, a lot of people say, well, it looks real nice now. You have the pavers, and you have the trees in the middle, and you got like the drains box. But that's all by design, is it not?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, green infrastructure, I would say, starts with tree canopy and making sure that we intercept that rainwater with trees. And essentially, it's just a different way of managing stormwater. And so green, it's in the name, obviously, so we love that tree canopy. It starts there, ultimately gives people places to go. It's shady, it's nice, so it's a way to implement, or I would say just to bring stormwater management at the end of the day into what's already the cityscape. So it's really adding amenities while you're managing stormwater along the way.
We're also doing a project. It's going to be in downtown Melbourne. We're going to be adding those boxes as well. And I know it's a pilot program, but to me, we're already well past a pilot program. Would you not say that?
Totally, yeah. There's a lot of different products and things that are coming out that are brand new. So one of the things we do at Ferguson essentially is just try and find the latest and greatest products that work to clean water, fit within those city landscapes. And so there's constantly new things coming out that just manage the water a little bit differently or maybe use a different treatment technology. So I think it's awesome that you guys are really leading the way to say, hey, we see something new here. Let's give it a try. Let's see if that works, you know? And so there's ways to partner with folks to monitor those things, check them out, which I know your team is doing, to see how effective they are. And that's how you really bring new technologies to surrounding communities.
Now, a question I'd have for you is you know, we're just starting this with the city, and I greatly appreciate what you're doing, and you're helping our staff to kind of understand some of these new concepts. But my question to you would, what are other cities doing like ahead of us that we should see coming down the pike? For example, is, you know, we just did our first rain pond, and that's the Sherwood Park baffle box, and you got the big gigantic rain pond, and that holds the water. But can you kind of tell me what we're looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, that was an excellent example of you guys really, I say the city of Melbourne really leading the charge. An amazing green infrastructure project that included some rain gardens, actually is what they called. So they're built in a specific way to process water, clean that water. Those ponds are taking nitrogen out of the water before it gets in the lagoon. So a really huge project for the lagoon. And then the baffle box, which was there as well, is keeping out gross pollutants. You think about trash, you know, if you look inside of pipes or think about the things that go down a storm drain, leaves and trash and things like that, that not only are they unsightly, but they also carry a lot of pollutants. So by capturing those in a baffle box, you're preventing all that stuff from going into the city. And I would say these programs kind of start doing things just the way that you guys are doing. I mean, you find opportunities to basically implement this green infrastructure. And as time goes by and you really start to look at where we really see cities doing things, you talk about the downtown area. As you redevelop these areas and maybe bring them up to, you know, bring new aesthetics to the areas, there's awesome opportunities to fold these things in these technologies in. So not only are you improving the overall look of the community, but you're also managing stormwater, and it's all happening within the same project.
Interesting. And also something that I really liked is also like the permeable pavers. Right now, the way some of the code is written, I'm not very happy with it. It's just old mentality that something has to be paved. And you know, where the water hits the concrete and it goes somewhere, and maybe do a swell or something. The permeable pavers, I think not only they look good, you see them in crosswalks in certain places, but they also allow the water to go down there as opposed to just pushing it.
Absolutely, and that's another, you know, it's green infrastructure. So you think green, you mentioned trees, we think maybe about landscaping, incorporating that into stormwater management, but it's also basically these types of permeable systems you talked about. Essentially, if you think about asphalt or concrete, when it rains, the water hits that and it goes to a drain, but these permeable surfaces allow that water to actually just go straight through the surface, right down into the ground. They never make their way into the lagoon, and they look beautiful. So essentially, you're creating this wonderful amenity for the community in terms of maybe some on-street parking or some crosswalks. And then amidst doing that, you're getting rid of water at the same time and really managing it in a healthy way as opposed to just letting it go into the lagoon. So it doesn't necessarily mean green infrastructure doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be a plant or that it's green. Essentially, it's just it's a description of a way to manage stormwater, try and keep it on your site as much as possible as opposed to just letting it go off.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you know, also when I read more into this, you know, the green roofs, the plants on the roofs, as well as you go down 95 and you see in the middle of the median, you see all the all the plants. You know, instead of going and just mowing everything, that's part of it, correct?
That's all part of it. That's absolutely right. So there's new technologies. I mean, these have been around now for probably 15, 20 years when I say new, but essentially you landscape a roof. So instead of it just being shingles or tile or a membrane, now it's vegetated. It's something that folks can look at. It's pretty, not to mention that calms the heat island effect down. So it actually makes that building more efficient. So you're giving the folks that are in that building looking out, instead of looking at a dirty old roof, they're now looking at a nice garden. So that's another example of a low impact development or a green infrastructure technology or method to manage water again.
And you know, that would be very sightly if you think about when you're now at the Hotel Melbourne, you're looking down in downtown Melbourne. Imagine instead of seeing, you know, modified bitumen roofs and, you know, the old, you know, flat roofs, if you saw green and stuff growing on a roof, I mean, that would really change the landscaping. And really, the appeal alone, you're really, in my opinion, you're accomplishing several missions at once.
Absolutely, and that's the goal. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to manage stormwater in a way that adds amenities both for folks to enjoy, social spaces. You create these great spaces. It's awesome. You mentioned the downtown area. You retrofit these areas or you improve the overall aesthetics. Businesses now are wanting to come into the area, or you can command higher rents as a property owner because you've created some new spaces for maybe people to walk or bike. And then at the end of the day, it's all about the environment, right? We know here in Melbourne how important the Indian River Lagoon is and the Indian River in general is to us. Many of us have lived here like myself for 40 years, and I've been kicking it around that river or creek or you name it for that time. So it's really not only giving us cool places to hang out, helping businesses thrive, but it's also thinking about the environment and making sure that we take care of that asset, really, is what I think it is for the area.
That's nice. I do notice, like when I look at some of your background and stuff, you've actually done quite a few classes and stuff. When I saw when the our Indian River Lagoon, the Marine Resources Council group, I see your name on a lot of the stuff on your teaching classes. Is that correct?
Well, I've been fortunate. Last year we hold a conference every year.
Mm-hmm.
I should say Dr. Soto holds a conference every year there at the Marine Resources Council to really just tell folks about what's going on with the lagoon. You guys are very big supporters of the report card, so you're well aware of what that's about. But yeah, I had the fortune of being able to kind of talk, and I'm really passionate about this, like letting people know what it is, how it helps, and how it's different than how we've traditionally managed stormwater. So yeah, I'm humbled to say I'm an expert, but I've been around it for a little while, and so I kind of live and breathe this stuff every day and can see opportunities or look for opportunities to implement this stuff.
One thing that I learned a lot now that I've been in government is the importance of stormwater. I mean, everybody says, well, the water, it rains, as long as the water goes away, I'm okay. As long as my street isn't flooded or or something like that. But the issues that you have is all that water is carrying debris. And if you look at the street, how many people have said, well, the streets look beautiful after it rains because everything goes down the gutter. and unfortunately, that stuff goes somewhere. And that goes and it has to be processed. Well, normally, like I said, it goes down into, well, before it was just straight to the lagoon. I mean, all streams lead to the Indian River Lagoon, and then baffle boxes. Right now, I did an update for the realtors today, and right now the city of Melbourne, we have on baffle boxes, we have 5 of them right now in engineering. I'm hoping, knock on wood, I wrote a letter to Governor DeSantis on ensuring that we got our $1.3 million for the Spring Creek baffle box. That's a huge project. That's about 55 acres, I think, around the O'Galley area. All that's being funneled into the lagoon without having a baffle box. And there's, that's something that I believe, I've been told that it should last. So that's, in my opinion, I think that's going to be one of the largest baffle box projects, pipe replacements, that's going to be done, in Melbourne. So hopefully that works out and we get that. But that's all part of the baffle box, the green infrastructure, and the being green. So if you would kind of go through each one, you brought some slides here, and it can maybe give some of our viewers an idea of what you're looking at. And the night you came before the Melbourne City Council and you discussed this, you were kind of on point on this. So kind of tell us a little bit about this, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. We can go ahead and just push through the slide here and give everyone a brief overview of what it is that we're talking about. Essentially, at the end of the day, as I've said, it's just a different way to manage stormwater. So as we push through these slides here, left and right graphics. So traditional stormwater management's on the left-hand side of the screen. Essentially, it rains, and we try and get that rain into a gutter or a drain, which goes into a pipe, and it goes into some sort of a receiving water body. That water body, as you've alluded to many a times, is the Indian River. It could be the O'Galley River. It could just be a pond that you see in your yard. So that's traditional, conventional stormwater management, and I like to say that's ultimately what's got us here to where we are today. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is an example of the way things used to be in terms of stormwater management. When it rained, before we developed anything, it was just natural land. And so when it rained, the water hit the ground. For the most part, it soaked into the ground. Maybe it ran over the land a little bit and got into a river or a stream, but for the most part, everything that hit the ground stayed on the ground, and it stayed out of those water bodies. So green infrastructure or low impact development says basically we want to just keep that water on site. We want to slow that water down when it rains. We want to spread it out on our site, and ideally soak it in so that it doesn't go to some sort of a water body. And when you do that, a couple things happen. Number one, you keep all those pollutants out of there, right? And number two, you're giving the water a place to go. And I'll talk about the importance of that in a second, versus flooding. So this is a great way to prevent pollution and also reduce any kind of localized flooding that is happening. I think we all see that going around. We'll go to the next slide. And basically, this is Melbourne. This is a great example of what green infrastructure versus developed area looks like. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is development. This is Melbourne. So you see those big ponds that are kind of spread out throughout the landscape. Well, all that water that hits all that area is piped and it goes into those ponds. Before we developed anything, look here to the screen. You're going to look just to the west of 95. This is what the land used to look like. When it rained, where'd the water go? It went basically right there, right? It's not going anywhere different. So great example of, I'd say, to the west, it's what's to come. I'm sure you know, Mayor, folks want to move here. Folks want to live here. It's a beautiful place. So this is a great example of what traditional infrastructure looks like on the right-hand side versus what green infrastructure could look like on the left-hand side. We'll go to the next slide. And we talk about why is this important? Well, ultimately, on top, you think about the infrastructure here in the city of Melbourne. How long ago were these pipes put in the ground? There's no telling. Lots of places I go, the infrastructure's been in there for 80 years. Yeah. So basically, it was a pipe. Maybe it was an 18-inch pipe that they built so many years ago to service a certain amount of people. And that's kind of what I'm illustrating here at the top. Go down, well, what's happening? Is Melbourne growing? I think it is, right? Lots of people are moving here. Well, guess what? Those pipes are still the same size. So essentially, we've basically tried to put 3 times more water into that piping system than was ever really supposed to be there. Those pipes can't handle it, and sometimes that's why you see some localized flooding. The water's just got nowhere to go in terms of actually going through a pipe. And then take that one step further. We'll go to the next slide. Many of you folks that live maybe on a creek or on the river out here at the coast, look at these pipes. You see these pipes that kind of stick out on the side. Well, this is where all that stormwater, after it's collected, this is how all the water gets into these waterways. Well, guess what? I don't see a pipe anymore. You see my boots there. I took these pictures out at the Crane Creek Promenade to really tie this into Melbourne, but there's no more place for that water to go. So when it rains, basically instead of that water being able to dump into wherever that pipe is, now all that water's building up in the pipes, and that water ends up showing its face in the city somewhere, maybe your neighborhood. So essentially, I always kind of say, I think it's a good analogy. Our buckets are all full. I think the Indian River Lagoon and the Indian River itself, the nutrient bucket, the pollution bucket, it's full. It can't take any more. We're doing everything we can to try and get it out of there. And the same thing I would say in terms of just putting the water there. It's got nowhere to go. So this green infrastructure basically is a way to give us new places to put water. And I think the next slide will show us that. Yep. So here's green infrastructure. You mentioned a lot of these things today. So rain gardens, green roofs, tree box filters. If you look at this picture here, basically all the water has an opportunity to maybe go into those gardens, like rain gardens, or some of these pavers that you're seeing here could be the permeable pavers that Mayor mentioned earlier that basically allow the water to seep down into the ground. So lots of different opportunities to collect water. And what you're seeing here is pedestrian riding on the road, places for folks to park, big, nice areas for people to walk in these downtown areas. And by the way, you're going to do this probably anyway, right? You're probably going to improve the streetscapes and everything. So it's just a way to really fold stormwater management in. And if you think about each one of those things, I like to think of it as, look, we just created a new little pail. We created a new little place where we can park the water, let it go back down into the ground, as opposed to letting it go into the river or the lagoon. So this is a great example of showing some techniques for that. I think I've got another slide here, Jesse. We talk about the benefits of green infrastructure, and it's called the triple bottom line. Okay, so to the right, you can see when we think about creating these spaces, we want to create great social places for people to come and hang out and spend time with their families. For me personally, I love going for a walk down at the promenade or down by the river. I love going downtown where there's trees. It feels good to be in those areas, and I'm drawn to those areas. Economic, heck, if I'm going there and I'm bringing my family there, I'm probably going to have lunch, or maybe I'm going to go shop at the candle shop, or I'm going to go to the, whatever the downtown amenities are. So the economy is benefiting. Businesses are thriving, people are coming in and spending money, and then the environment. When you think back to that slide we just looked at, all that looks so pretty, and we're just incorporating that stormwater management into that. We're putting all that water keeping it in that downtown area, not letting it go to the lagoon. So benefits that we're not just thinking about maybe designing for cool places for people to be or for businesses to thrive, but really trying to tie all three of those things together for long-term impact in the city here. Let's see what we got next here. Benefits. We talk about this. So first and foremost, if we're putting water back down into the ground, we're recharging those aquifers. Recharging aquifers is great because that's where we get our drinking water. One of the things. Number two, when you put water back down into the ground, it creates a pressure that really keeps and pushes seawater out. So if you think about sea level rise and those conversations that are happening, putting water back down into the ground helps keep seawater out. I love this. It adds tax revenue for municipalities. I mean, we're talking about green infrastructure and putting stormwater management in the streets of Melbourne, but we can do this on any commercial property. So, for you guys in Melbourne, you have permits from the state that say, hey, you're managed, you have to clean a certain amount of water. You're very well aware of these things. So if we get the development community to start implementing these kinds of management practices instead of putting up that BMP, I call it a big muddy pond. I don't like big muddy ponds. So, but if we do some of these things here, now all of a sudden you've got a whole piece of real estate that doesn't have a pond anymore. That's more tax revenue for the municipalities. I think that that's really, really important. And really, the biggest benefit of that is if developers or private people keep the water on site, it's not your problem anymore. They're putting it in the ground. They're not giving it to you anymore. It makes your world, it makes all your stormwater folks' world so much easier. And then we gave some examples earlier about what localized flooding is. If that bucket is full, if the pipes are full and they can't take any more water, what are we going to do? Well, option one is to upsize pipes. So we can scroll forward so I can show you here. I mean, some folks here, and you've probably heard a lot about this, Mayor, is just, oh, well, green infrastructure is very expensive to build. On the top, you see a couple pictures there. On the left-hand side, pavers. They look really pretty. Very conventional, though. When it rains, those pavers don't take water in. If you look to the right, that's a product called Pave Drain. You guys actually have several Pave Drain projects here in the city. They look great, but guess what? They're taking the water in off the surface, so that water never finds a drain. Some folks will say, well, it's too expensive to maintain these things. Well, again, look at my second tier of pictures here. Think about every single parking lot that you go into. I don't care where you are. There's gardens everywhere, and those gardens have a little wall built around them or curbing, and guess what? They can't take any stormwater in. On the right-hand side, this is a rain garden actually in the city of Cocoa Beach that we did. So these gardens have little cuts in the curb that allow water to come in there and now manage the water. So they're both vegetated. They both need to be weeded. They both need to be trimmed. So they virtually look the same. And then the last thing I got down, and this is, I think, so huge. It's too expensive to repair. I was down on Front Street the other day, and just looking at some opportunities here in the city of where we could implement green infrastructure. And there was a construction crew out there. I walked up to the guy and says, hey, what's going on out here? He says, well, we're doing a stormwater project. We're making these pipes bigger so we can flow more water through them and we don't have as much flooding in this area. And I says, oh, and they said, oh, by the way, we're putting in some pavers, permeable pavers over here too. I says, oh, this is great. But, an example of when these pipes fail, you got to dig up the road. You got to dig up the pipe. You got to replace the pipe with a much, much bigger pipe, and then you get to put it all back down together again. On the right-hand side, bottom right, that's a rain garden. Guess what? It's easy to fix these things. They're right at the surface. You can see what the problem is. Maybe you replace some plants. Maybe you need to scour some mulch or change some mulch out, and you've got yourself a new project working, a rain garden that's working the same all over again. So in terms of maintenance, I really think it makes maintenance a lot easier. And honestly, you mentioned this, which leads me to believe, and I know that you guys are already thinking about this. There's a lot of things in the stormwater codes that say, yeah, we want to do green infrastructure. This is a great way to manage water. Sometimes the development code prevents those things from happening. The two don't talk. And so, looking at your development code or maybe looking at your city ordinances and making sure that it's favorable that you could maybe plant trees so close to a building or whatever the case may be is really, really important. At the end of the day, green infrastructure looks a lot like what you're used to seeing on the day-to-day, but technology's changed so that we can really just try and put that water back down into the ground. And I think I might have one more, but that could be the end of the end of the scene. So, that's kind of like Green Infrastructure 101, really, really fast, right? So to give you an understanding of what that is, and just to reiterate again, it's just a different way of thinking in terms of how do we manage that water rather than putting it in a pipe. We want to try and put it back down into the ground, and we want to make it look really pretty when we do that.
When you think about what the regulations for the city, for example, and I'll use for our golf courses, and we're redoing all our golf courses, both golf courses, and we have to get rid of reclaimed water by state law. We have to get rid of a large amount of that. So what we're doing now is we're watering our golf courses. We're redoing all that. You have to get rid of it, and you just find something to do with it. And there's no different here as you got to get rid of this water. You're going to pay one way or you're going to pay the other. And at the end of the day, what kind of downtown and what kind of city do you want? And as you pour concrete, the city gets hotter. There's no doubt, and you go into some cities that's nothing but concrete, it gets hot. This will help manage that heat, and again, I think it kind of gives people, more sense of I think it gives them more sense of a better home, a better downtown, a better place to be, better place to live, and so. I'm looking forward to doing this, and really our council. When you came before council, I said, look, I don't want you to just talk about it. I want to do it. I think we have to pull the trigger on this. We're already doing it in projects, and again, I think this is going to be, maybe us be a leader in this. So, Canaveral, what are they doing too that we're not doing?
I would say they're starting. I mean, I think what they're doing is following in the footsteps of what you guys have been doing. I mean, they're looking for opportunities to manage water, much like this city. Cape Canaveral, it's an older city.
Right.
When you drive through the city, you see a lot of curb and gutters. You don't see really any green infrastructure or things in place for that water to go. So I would say that they're looking at opportunities the same way that you guys are, and upgrading and looking at sustainability and things like that. So I actually met with them last week. We drove through the President's neighborhood, as I learned what it was called, that community. All the streets are named for the presidents, and just looking for opportunities to say, where can we get this water off the street? Because it does stack up. They've got some flooding issues there in certain neighborhoods. And so really, I would say most of the stuff that we do is similar. We're looking at some porous concrete opportunities there to put in their gutter lines so they can penetrate or infiltrate water there as opposed to letting it get to the storm drain. So they don't have a really cool downtown area like you guys do, so they don't have that big.
We got two of them now.
I know you got O'Galley too, so it was great. I mean, going through the city and at your request, looking at some opportunities to do some things, some really neat areas that, I mean, they're just already, you can see people flocking in, businesses coming in. So, I would say that much like you guys, they're looking for opportunities to use green infrastructure so they don't got to worry about going and tearing up pipes.
Well, let me ask you a question then. I noticed I've seen some issues. Some of the properties there off Cypress and stuff. They're required to have concrete slabs. What about the concrete that's got the grass that grows between them? Tell us, what is that, and tell us about that.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different.
I'm learning here too. That's why I'm going to pick your brain. I'm learning here too.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. So I'm really fortunate in the fact that working at Ferguson, we are a product reseller, we're a distributor, so we see all kinds of neat products, and there's all kinds of different porous or permeable surfaces. So one of the ones you're talking about, maybe a concrete paver that's got holes in it that grass can actually grow up and grow through. Yeah. There's other ones that are just pure concrete. They can look like concrete at the surface, but they actually have little porous spaces in them where the water can go through. Okay. We showed you some examples of some pavers on there. There's also some really cool things nowadays that, folks will say, well, I don't want to have concrete. I want to use maybe grass, or I want to use a gravel surface. So there's these neat grid systems that they create these little kind of porous spaces that you can fill with stone or you can fill with soil. And now you've got a different type of surface. But again, the whole purpose is to keep that rain on site. So there's numerous different technologies to do that. And at the end of the day, we kind of pick and choose and say, what's going to look the best for this community, or what's going to look the best for this neighborhood, maybe this downtown district, and also function. That's going to be a very big part of what we're looking at in terms of selecting a technology.
Nice. See, that's. What do you think of that, Jesse?
Oh, I love all of it. Again, it's a beautification project. It's also, you can mitigate traffic and parking issues, all kinds of different things. I've seen lots of success with other municipalities in employing all these features. I'm really excited about it all. Having the baffle boxes and knowing what their purpose is for. Reducing litter and of course chemicals. The whole thing just makes me a little more prouder.
Yeah.
Because we're actually taking the steps to mitigate the stormwater problem. And not for nothing, as you mentioned a couple times, we are growing. More concrete is being laid, more asphalt and roads and so forth. So it's going to be a continuing challenge to find a place for all this runoff to go.
Yeah, and I think there's one thing that all of us can say, no matter what, development's not stopping.
No.
I mean, people aren't going to quit coming here. No, we live in too pretty of a place, and we have too many cool things to do here for people to stop coming here. So I always tell folks, development's going to happen, and that's okay. That's healthy. That's a great thing for our society. There's a real healthy way to do it, though, in terms of protecting the environment. And so there's so many things available now that, we're creating amenities. I mean, it's hard to think, but these landscaped amenities or these paver amenities that we've talked about are actually assets. They're assets that make things look prettier around us, but they're also assets that are going to manage water and do it in a different and healthier way for the lagoon. And I always tell folks, they say, well, green infrastructure, this is a different way to manage water. And we talked about some of the things, the challenges in terms of perceptions. The reality is, maybe we're going to spend a little bit more money from time to time to develop something. But I think that people would rather do that than just turn development off. If our waterways get so polluted that folks don't want to come here and they can't swim. I mean, there's lots of places where things like that can't happen. We're not there yet in Florida, fortunately, but there's lots of places where the things we used to do in water have totally changed, and we can't let our kids or our grandchildren go do those same things. And to me, that's what's going to stop development, is if people don't want to come here anymore,
or live here,
and they want to move away. Well, guess what? We got different challenges, and so this is a fun one for me, because I know we've seen, like you said, other people implement it. It's great.
There's ways to develop smarter.
Yeah.
And instead of just a careless, reckless kind of way where all that mitigation is an afterthought. Where do we have like a little mitigation pond, under property where water can go to? Now, you see that. You see that's part of the architectural plan. The blueprints. There's got to be a place where water to go to, and it's refreshing because again, smart development is the way to go. It's a careless development that we don't want.
Absolutely, yeah. And you think about the way, just look around. We're probably, hopefully you learned a couple things today listening to this, and think about when you see, now these big ponds that you see that are built, they're built to manage stormwater, typically on a site. Where do you see them? They're behind the building. No one wants to see those big muddy ponds, we don't want to see that. Well, green infrastructure says, no way, man, we're going to give you cool stuff that looks beautiful, and we can fold it right into the landscape and put it front and center, because everyone wants to be around this stuff. It's pretty. It's just, so it's a different way of really managing water, and I would say one that really truly brings joy. I talk about the benefits of the lagoon. That's what I'm most concerned about. I want to keep going swimming and boating and taking my wife out there. But like the mayor said, the heat island effect. Concrete's hot, man. I mean, it's just it makes the temperature rise, and living in Florida, I mean, I know we're used to it, right? We all live in the swamp, but I love sitting under a tree in the middle of July. And so there's so many other benefits, as Mayor pointed, that heat island effect, or just really calming that down. So many cool things come from this stuff. It's not just about protecting our waterways.
Well, I just put on my Facebook page, we just was designated, with Tree City USA, because I thought that was big for the city of Melbourne. And that's recognized nationally, where they recognize many cities for, their for having tree coverage, and that Melbourne getting that designation is very, very, very important to me, and it's like success, seeing good things happen. What I kind of tasked when you came before council, one thing I tasked from you is bring whatever you can to us, and let's go in that route. One thing, for example, years ago, I remember rain barrels. Rain barrels, really want to. Some cities around here don't even do rain barrels. To my understanding, they don't really, they don't give you any kind of incentive to do it. But like City of Melbourne, we actually do that. So having rain barrels and capturing that water and then reusing it, little things like that, it makes it. It's not only to me, it's fun, but it's good for the environment.
Yeah, 100%. It makes a difference, and that's one way that just one person can pitch in. I mean, you put a rain barrel in your house, you're capturing that rainwater, and remember we said we don't want to let the city deal with it, so you're capturing it, and now you got something to water your plants, or do some really neat stuff with. Wash your car. There's tons of cool stuff to do with it, and now you're helping the lagoon by saving a little bit of water. You're like you said, you're doing something kind of fun. It feels good to reuse the rainwater. And shameless plug for MRC. Normally, you can buy the rain barrels at MRC. They sell them. So if you ever want to get one, go onto their website. My buddy Steve will help you find one of those things. And it's just if everyone did one little thing, you'd be shocked at what a huge impact it would have. And that's just such a simple thing to do. Good point.
And on that point, I know we're talking about municipalities, commercial customers as well. For the private homeowner, especially if they are on a protected pond, swale, or even a riverfront property, we've seen what they call a living shoreline dissipate and mitigate that, just straight up going right down that manicured lawn, bringing all that fertilizer right into the lagoon, where a living shoreline, whether it's mangrove or just a little bit of sand or sediment, where it just stops So before it goes into the river, it has a little bit of a barrier. What kind of other, like for the homeowners, what could they do privately?
Yeah, there's always building the rain garden is so simple. It's funny. I got into a conversation with my wife. You talk about talking to different groups. And what's a rain garden? Well, my wife and I are really proud of our garden. We got butterflies. She's and she listens to me talk about green infrastructure every day. So we said, let's put a rain garden in our front yard. Essentially, it's just a little depression storage so that when it rains, the water has a place to collect and then perk down into the ground. Again, maybe it doesn't make it all the way to that curb line. So rain gardens are a really cool thing that you can do. Honestly, fertilizer. I mean, there's so many things with fertilizer ordinances, and while that's not a green infrastructure practice, ultimately, we're all caring about the overall health of a lagoon. So be careful when you fertilize. Be careful not to put too much of it down. And I know the city and Brevard County, too, has got some great resources that tell folks about that. I mean, at the end of the day, when it rains, everything we do, that water's picking up, and it's taken into the Indian River Lagoon. So everything that you do not to put something down that's going to be harmful is a huge win. And it's one of the reasons why cities and counties place so much importance on that. Rain barrels are another awesome thing to do. I mean, again, just little small incremental things like that that make a big difference. Plants, I mean, you think about native plants here to Florida, they don't need to be trimmed as often. There's lots of flowers and colors, and when that all starts to happen, bees and butterflies and all kinds of fun wildlife show up at your house too. So, those are just, again, some ancillary kind of social benefits that happen from picking a plant maybe that doesn't need as much fertilizer or doesn't need as much water. Those are things we can also do to be helping out.
We know natives, especially here on the barrier island, which is a lot more, I think, sensitive, to the runoff situation because the water really has nowhere to go on a barrier island but either the ocean or the river. So when you could have a little bit more of a xeriscaping, thing and less lawn, and especially the natives, which, bring the pollinators, but they also have been growing here for, without any human help. They know the salty air well, they know the soil and the sandy soil here. They know, they've survived here for so long without our interaction. And again, the local insects love them. They're familiar. So having natives in any kind of landscape idea is, I think, imperative.
It's huge, And, little things like the living shoreline, that is an awesome way to protect erosion in your backyard. Great way to actually add and start to build up some of that sand. As I've learned at Marine Resources Council, they've got a great demonstration over there of some different technologies that they've implemented along the shoreline. And what you see all of a sudden is the shoreline actually starts to grow a little bit. These seawalls aren't always great, I can see the water, but guess what? Mangroves are pretty as well, So
absolutely.
Vegetating your shoreline helps. It's going to help with erosion. It's going to help build those banks. And then when we do get those storms, and, I hate it when they come, but they're going to come, it really protects that shoreline from falling away or falling apart on you, which is huge. And you're doing it with native plants. I mean, they're just, like you said, they've been here forever. I mean, they're doing their thing.
Yeah, 100%. No maintenance, no fertilizer needed. They just plant them and leave them.
Yeah.
Dr. Soto had made an interesting comment about, and I never thought of that, was about the mangroves, how it reduces the energy back and forth. The water goes back and forth, it's beaten back and forth. Therefore, the bottom, it's kind of beaten on the bottom where you kind of kills the seagrass. Yeah. But having mangrove, it absorbs some of that energy, and that could be a possibility of why some of we have seagrass issues. So I'd like to see that come back with more mangroves and kind of get natural. And that's really what I'm pushing here at the City of Melbourne, as mayor, is that we want to try to stay as natural as possible. We're going to have growth. It's inevitable, but we're going to have smart growth, and we're going to maintain a green lifestyle, because I think that's a direction that our residents want to be. They love their trees, they love their plants, they like to feel like basically they're in a park in every neighborhood they go, and we're going to get back to that way with your help, Chris.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And honestly, it's so refreshing to me to see the conversation that's happening around the lagoon and having, honestly, leaders as yourself that are see this vision and say, I always tell folks, my dad, when I was a kid, he used to always tell me, son, Chris, you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you expect a different outcome. That's the definition of insanity. And I used to tell him, Dad, you're crazy, right? None of us ever listen to our parents. But as I've gotten older, I've come to realize if we want to just keep dumping water and dumping water and dumping water into the lagoon or any kind of estuary or water body, guess what? We see the consequences of that. So if we want to change, we want something different, we expect a different outcome, do something a little bit different. And green infrastructure is a totally different way to manage water, a very healthy, sustainable way to manage water. And oh, by the way, like you said, it just looks great.
Well, if you were to ask me as mayor, what's one of the most baffling things I would say about stormwater, it's, for example, the size of Melbourne, let's say 55 square miles. You have a whole area that for decades, that basically the old way of doing it was just to dump all the water into a canal, into the lagoon, and everything off the street, everything off the road, the phosphorus, the nitrogen, the parts of car tires and the rubber, everything just goes to the lagoon. So, as I see each baffle box being built, and the one Spring Creek will take care of what is it, around 50 acres, 55, 60 acres. But you think about 60 acres around the Ogallie area does nothing but dump into the Indian River Lagoon. So, we're taxing ourselves. We're doing all these, we're trying to clean the lagoon. If we don't get ahead of this and we don't get these baffle boxes in, we don't clean them regularly, we don't move into a low impact development style and stop dumping water that way, then we're really going to have the same result. And that's a F- on a lagoon report.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, you guys have done an awesome job with showing the public what these baffle boxes do. Sherwood Park is an excellent example that the baffle boxes that the mayor's talking about, there's some in the city that have glass tops on them. I don't know if you've seen these or not, Jesse, but you can just walk right over and look down inside of those things, and you can see
the garbage,
the enormous amount of trash and garbage that's collected in these things and held onto. And, to take it a step further, the mayor said it, maintaining those things. Yeah. I mean, I went to the ribbon cutting of that, actually, and saw the big truck that said, hey, your stormwater utility money paid for this truck that's cleaning out these boxes, that's keeping that river really safe. So, the maintenance practices, seeing those things happen, it's really cool. But your residents can just go find one of those guys and look down inside and really see what the investment is doing with their own two eyes. It's crazy.
I'll tell you what was pretty interesting to me, and it's at the Sherwood Park when you see all that water coming into the baffle box, and then right where it's what is that, Robin Hood, and you see it going into the baffle box, and then when it comes out, the color of the water, when it goes in, it's kind of dirty. It's like an orangish, and then when it comes out, it's like clean. And I don't know if that's having to do with the Bolden Gold or whatever it's doing, but you look at the water, it's almost like it's drinkable, and it's wild to think that a baffle box is cleaning the water that much, but it comes out and it's like, that's pretty cool to see that water clean that quick, and all the debris, and and I don't know if it was a joke, one of the engineers like, yeah, you could probably drink that. I'm like, oh, I know you can. You go first.
Yeah, you go first.
I may treat it first.
Yeah, don't drink the water coming out of a baffle box, but aesthetically it looks clean. You're right. Yeah. I mean, you can distinctively tell a difference.
Orange to clear, it's like amazing what these do.
Well, one doesn't look, too inviting to send to the river. The other one, I don't mind sending that product to the river.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you can really see it.
And having mentioned that, Sherwood, I actually lived in that neighborhood off of Robin Hood for just a better part of last year. And when it did rain, I actually would come to a crawling kind of stop and look, and it was doing a job. I mean, the baffle boxes were working, tons of water entering, that area, and you just saw the whole thing being implemented, and the litter was rising to the top. It wasn't going to the next stage and beyond, and it's quite the engineering feature. So recommend, go check these out. Be proud of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Be proud of what the city's doing. And I forgot, I got sidetracked earlier, but Sherwood Park is an awesome example if you ever go to that place. I remember when we went to the ribbon cutting, folks were like, the only thing that this whole project is missing is walking trails, because it looks gorgeous. People were wanted to go in there, and that's a trend.
The
too.
rain gardens?
Absolutely,
The rain gardens are pretty neat.
Because there is some vacant like lawn.
Yeah.
Where easily there could be like a gazebo or whatever. I mean, I'm not sure, a dog park or any matter of things. It could be,
Well, a walking trail would be nice.
Yeah.
When you walk back in there and you see all the plants and the flowers, it's pretty wild when you look at that. And just to think that, hey, all this is here to catch water, to clean water, and it's a real nice place to go. And I'd put that on my social media a while back, and people were like, "Where's that at? Where's that at? Is that in Melbourne?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is in Melbourne.
Sure.
Pretty crazy."
That was one of the things. Actually, you talk about what is Port Canaveral doing. We looked at a couple of vacant lots that maybe they have the opportunity to purchase, and they're going to make them these they call them stormwater parks. Essentially, it's the only vegetated piece of property around, so they can create walking trails and things like that on it as an amenity for the community. And then, by the way, we can manage water on this site too. So much like Sherwood Park, it's taking these natural landscaped areas and making them an amenity for folks that they don't want to walk around on the concrete. They'd love to go into a little wooded area. And, by the way, it's keeping a bunch of water from going into the lagoon. Really, really neat to see those things.
It gives habitat to birds and insects and all the like, I love that.
Yeah, when we were with Dr. Soto at Cape Canaveral, or at Port Canaveral, I forget what it was called, but the bird festival that you guys had, I don't know if it was here every year, but it was canceled now because the birds just aren't in the lagoon like they used to be.
That was
the birds aren't in the river.
Merritt Island, rather.
Yeah.
Marine sanctuary.
That's exactly right. So it's just, when the habitat starts to go away, guess what? So do the birds, and so do the fish, and so do the manatee, and we can't do those things anymore. So creating these like rain gardens with these flowers, and you'd be shocked, but you bring the flowers in, that brings the butterflies and the bugs in, and that brings the birds in, and they're back, and you can see them again. So again, just all part of really being an amenity for the community.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if I'm not wrong, I think I know the couple lots that you're referring to. But I'm not going to disclose because I don't want to be wrong and share the wrong thing. But
that's the realtor coming out in Jesse.
Yeah, right.
Here we go.
There's a few open spaces that it could be, and I've heard of other developments that could possibly be entertaining, building there. But anything that helps, because the port's surrounded by not only ocean water but also river water and everything else, and it's where they combine. So having the cleanest water at that area should be kind of vital.
Yeah, and one cool thing about green infrastructure too, and we've talked about it, is you're managing the water on that site. So you think about, for a city, if there are opportunities for you to kind of redevelop an area that you already own, increase the amenities, make it prettier and better for folks to be there, and manage stormwater, that's a heck of a lot cheaper than having to go out and acquire properties, especially in a city like Melbourne where there's really no more vacant land or anything. So if you need to create a new stormwater park, or you want to create a new pond or something to kind of store water instead of putting in the lagoon, it's really expensive to do that. Right. Fixing what you currently have is a heck of a lot more cost effective than going out and buying new land and then doing all that stuff on top of it. So it's a great way to also utilize what you currently have.
100%.
Well, in the city code, we have basically when you kind of turn a neighborhood, we're trying to do more with sidewalks and giving people the ability to walk, and that's just part of the overall comprehensive plan with Melbourne. So. I know our time's about up. We're running on about 50 minutes. That's normally what we do. And you have anything else for us, or what's your thought?
No, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to presenting some solutions to you for the city of Melbourne at your request. We've got some really neat spots that we went through the city and found some great opportunities to implement green infrastructure. So, it's funny you say, I think I know that lot. I walk around with cities and counties all the time, and it all starts to kind of look the same, right? So I forget where I'm going and I forget where I am. But yeah, what's next for us ultimately is really trying to continue to spread this message, educate folks, on what low impact development is, what green infrastructure is, and the benefits of it, and then working with cities and counties to figure out where are there opportunities to get it put in, and then helping them get it done.
Well, if you wanted to know what it looks like, go down Pineapple Avenue. All that's been replaced there. All the planters you'll see it soon in downtown Melbourne. Again, it's a pilot program. I don't know if I call it pilot because that's the direction we are going, but you're going to see more and more of this. And there's a method behind this madness, and it's obtaining and retaining the stormwater in the area and actually making it this place more of a green space. So, Chris, I want to thank you for coming before council and really working with our staff and helping us understand, a better way to to manage stormwater and to make a better quality of life for our residents. Because to me, that's what our job here is. And I want to thank my fellow council members for being supportive on this idea, and also our city staff, because I know, that there's always a mentality of a way to do things, and sometimes change is hard, but change is necessary. So again, thank you thank you to you for doing that, and also want to thank Jesse for putting on this podcast, and even you were out for a couple weeks. You were in a bad skydiving accident, right? Sure. Right. So we were out for a little bit with Jesse. Jesse, glad you got out of jail, Jesse. That was good.
Sheriff treated me good, though.
You weren't in jail. I'm not going to do that to you.
3 squares a day.
3 squares a day. No. Again, we're thanks to everyone for tuning in. And if you have any idea what you'd like to see in the city of Melbourne, reach out to me. You can follow me on my Facebook, and now I'm actually on TikTok. And I am on TikTok now, and I have a mayor message. If you go to my TikTok and watch it, that is me. And I've got a mayor message, but you're going to have to go to my TikTok to watch it, and I'm not gonna tell you what it is, and I think you'll like it. So follow me on TikTok on Mayor Paul Alfrey, and here on Facebook. And again, you have any questions, if you want to reach out, feel free. And again, thanks everyone for the input, and again, thanks to y'all for another great show.
All right, till next time, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.